All right, it's Josh here. I'm with Carly, and it is Tuesday, the 6th of October. It's 6:30 Central Time. I'm, believe it or not, in Eastern Time Zone here in Michigan. I don't know why, but we are. So
Okay. All right.
it's a strange thing. But well, tell me a little bit more about yourself, Carly. What are you teaching? Where are you teaching? How long have you been teaching? What is it? What does your life as a teacher look like?
This is my second year as a teacher.
Okay.
I teach at a South Suburban School of Minneapolis. I teach at Lakeville South High School.
I grew up in Lakeville.
Oh, did you go to Lakeville, the high school, when it was there?
No, I did not go to North when it was just North, but my sister went to South.
Okay.
So we actually lived. Do you know where the McStop is?
No,
Oh,
I don't.
okay.
I don't live down there, so I don't really know too much.
We lived maybe 10, 15 minutes south of there. So
Okay.
that's funny. That's cool. I know a little bit about the school, so that's exciting. Tell me more.
So I teach at Lakeville South. I teach physics, so I mostly right now have juniors and seniors.
Okay, got it. Let's see. I wonder if there's someone down there that you may know who also teaches physics. I'm blanking on his name. I'll recall at some point, or Em's going to help me out. Yes, Kalen Laurent.
I took Kalen's job.
Oh, I didn't know that he changed jobs. Okay.
His wife got a residency for nursing or I forget what she's doing, but something down in Missouri, I want to say.
Oh, wow.
So he moved down there with her. I am technically actually a long-term sub for Kalen.
Oh, got it.
He went on leave and actually could come back anytime and my job would be gone.
Oh, really? Well, that's an interesting situation for you to be in.
Yeah, it is. And as long as the board approves his leave of absence, then I'm technically a long-term sub until maybe another spot opens or he doesn't get approved or he doesn't even apply.
Huh, okay. And you say this is your second year of teaching, so I assume you did something a little different last year.
Yeah, well, last year I taught AP Physics and physics. What I teach, physical science, the ninth grade science.
Right.
But then some stuff happened with AP, and they gave me general physics.
Okay. And you're...
But I can give you more detail if you'd like on the AP thing.
Oh, sure. Hey, whatever you're willing to share. I'm looking to learn a little bit more about you and kind of what life has been like for you as a teacher this far.
Well, I expected a little too much of the students right away, thinking, okay, AP Physics, it's going to be hard. I'm going to make it hard. Well, I made it a little too hard, and about almost more than half of the kids failed my first test that I gave.
Okay.
And I said, that's okay. Let's fix this, and you can do retakes for 100%. I tried to do a lot more things then and fix my mistakes, but about 30 kids dropped my class.
Oh.
So that was like a rough beginning for me. That was my first year teaching.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
So, yeah, and then the rest of the year went pretty good. My AP scores were better than North's and better than the year before with Kalen. So I felt really great about that. But then our principal, who was new, said because of that mistake that was happened, now AP Physics has a bad rep with it, that it's like too hard. And so he said, because of that, we're going to let the other physics teacher, Radetzky, I don't know if you know Mr. Radetzky or have heard of him.
No.
We're going to let him teach AP Physics instead. So that I didn't get to teach AP Physics this year.
Oh, well, I'm sorry it kind of went down like that. It's always tough when it's your first year, but it sounds like you got a real rough deal, to be honest. Tough assignment right off the bat,
Yeah, and I really wanted to teach it again so I could fix those mistakes, right? I know what I did wrong. Let me fix it and try again.
Sure.
But they didn't.
Oh.
So, I mean, I guess I have a weight off my shoulders this year, but I am teaching another class. So I have majority general physics, but this year they gave me a class called Physics of Sport.
Oh, okay.
That's mostly for kids who want an easy A. Like, that was the reputation of this class.
Mm-hmm. And they gave you that class. That's funny.
Yeah, right. So pretty much what this class is, it's a class of majority boys. I have 4 girls and 21 boys, and they're all friends with each other. so they goof off the whole time. And it's very hard to control, and it's very hard to figure out exactly what to teach, because half of them are either in physics or AP physics right now, and half of them have never taken physics before.
Wow.
So
that's an interesting combination of audience members, right?
Right. So half of them are either bored or don't get it.
Huh. And you need to teach all of them.
Yep.
Okay.
So I've kind of decided to try just mostly making it a lab class where they just do labs all the time.
Okay.
But I still want to fit content into that and some math. So it's been difficult to kind of get these boys to listen to me, and then also to make sure I'm teaching well.
Sure.
So
it still sounds like a lot to do in only your second year teaching, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It seems like things keep changing on you a little bit.
Yeah, thankfully, I mean, the other physics teacher has given me all of his general physics, like worksheets and homeworks and everything like that.
Okay.
So I didn't have to create any of that, which is very nice.
Wonderful. And if I can ask, what inspired you to take Barb's class here?
What class? The online one right now?
Yes, the online one. You have 55. I'll confess.
51. I think
51.
we call it now.
All right, very good.
Well, I need to get my master's still.
Mm-hmm.
So that seemed like an easy way to get some credits with the online class. Did you teach it last year?
I did, as a matter of fact. I think we called it 5531, but
Yeah.
it was in many ways the same or similar class. Yeah. Why, have you heard any horror stories? Have you heard that it's a really an easy A or the opposite?
No, but okay. So I was just like, I know a little bit about you, Josh, just because you're some people's mentors, and I've seen you around.
Oh,
but then,
okay.
I heard just it wasn't too hard and everything. Yeah, there's stuff to do, and I wasn't trying. I'm not going to try for an A in the class just because I'm so busy, right? I don't need to do 100% to pass, which I know
okay.
I don't want that to sound bad, but I'm a busy person.
Okay.
I don't want because Barb is so amazing. I don't want to look bad in Barb's eyes. So now I feel like I have to do really well in the class because it's Barb. So I'm still taking it, of course, and I love Barb and everything. And so far it seems to be okay. I mean, it's a lot of what we've done before when we took our methods class and everything like that in the past. So it's not really super new with what we have to do. Okay.
Well, good. Well, I'm hoping that it is as you expect. It'll be something that you'll find valuable and will get you where you need to be. And I'm glad that you're a part of the study too, because that's I imagine that's kind of a nice little incentive as well for you, but also for us to get to learn about what life is like for you being a teacher and a scholar and doing all of that. So, well, let me get down to it. I know it is the evening, so I don't want to cut too much into your evening time. So let me ask you a few questions. I've got some very general questions to ask, and we can kind of, if there's something in particular you want to talk about that's maybe a little more specific, we can totally do that. This is kind of a guide for me.
Okay.
So let me start with, here's a question. I'd like to know, in your mind, how do you maximize student learning in your classroom? And you can think of any classroom, or it could be all of them, but how do you maximize student learning in your classroom?
I try to keep them engaged, I think that's the biggest thing. Because if they're bored or on their phone because they're bored or they're not engaged, they're definitely not going to learn. And as long as they're somewhat engaged in whatever we're doing, I think that's going to be definitely better for them to take in the knowledge than if they don't care about it. Okay.
And what does an engaged student or an engaged classroom look like to you?
Well, you don't talk. Like, I'm not going to spend the whole class doing a talking thing or doing a lesson, and I try to mix it up. So maybe I'm not talking for very long. But when I am talking, I'm still trying to get their attention, like with movement or different volume of my voice when something's really important, keep them engaged when I'm talking, but then also to switch it up, maybe do a little activity here, do a worksheet here. Try not to have the whole day just be one thing.
Okay. So it sounds like variety is key in what you do to keep students engaged and have them learning.
Yeah.
Okay. So kind of thinking of that, how would you describe your own role as a teacher? What do you do in this scenario?
In this engaged scenario?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I guess maybe on a typical day, I would do some talking to help introduce what we're going to learn, and then give them practice while I kind of rotate around the room, helping where needed, making sure everybody's trying it a little bit. So I get those kids that don't want to do anything. And then also helping the students so I know maybe who are going to need more help. So I'm kind of rotating around the room. And then from there, I guess, some sort of activity where I explain a little bit about the activity and then or maybe a lab, and then let them go about the lab, still then rotating around the room, double checking certain things, asking some questions here and there to make sure that they're remembering exactly what to do.
Okay. So it sounds like you're kind of guiding them as they're engaged in these activities in some ways kind of on their own, right?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Depending on the activity. Yeah. I mean, if they can be on their own, because I feel like they're ready for that.
Okay.
But sometimes I feel like they still need more of their handheld as they go through some labs or some activities. I do like to try to do a more student-centered lab or activity, but it takes some time.
And it sounds like it depends on the student's ability to handle that.
Yeah, like there's one class right now, they wouldn't be able to handle it because they're just too rowdy, right?
Okay.
But there might be another class that would be able to handle it.
Okay, got it. So what, I guess if I can go off of that, what kind of students can handle it and what kind of students can't? I guess maybe I could phrase that better. But it sounds like the students that aren't able to handle it are kind of rowdy, maybe rambunctious. What about the students that what are they doing that makes you say, oh yeah, they can handle this?
I think that the ones that I know would handle it are the ones who maybe pay more attention when I introduce the concept or the lab. So when I say, hey, remember to measure correctly, they remember that. And they're like, oh, guys, remember, she told us to measure from here and here, not there to there. So the ones that are maybe a little bit more attentive there, as well as the ones that I kind of notice don't call for me all the time. They don't rely on me. Because there's, students who want me to always be telling them what to do. They don't want to think on their own.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the ones that, can kind of think on their own a little bit, figure it out, or read the actual directions I have written right on the paper, those students I know would be able to handle it. Well, not maybe the ones that need their handheld, need me to tell them what to do, or not the ones that don't use lab equipment correctly when I'm not there.
Okay. All right. So thinking of this, students that are able to handle it and not, as you're going through the lesson, how do you know when your students understand a concept or an idea? How do you know when they understand?
Well, usually if we have like some practice problems in there, and as I'm rotating around the room, if I see students that are jumping right into it, they've already gotten the first two problems done while someone else hasn't, then I think, okay, this student has it. And if their answer's right, then they definitely have it. What was I going off of that? But yeah, so doing my own kind of informal assessment, instead of giving them a quiz to see if they can handle it, I kind of just try to stop by most of the students' desks or work area or lab area and just see what they have written down so far.
Okay.
Are they getting it? Are they doing what I asked them to do? Are they ahead of the rest of the class or not, right? Are they actually working, or are they talking on their phone or texting on their phone or something? So I try to notice most of my kids and what they're doing. The only problem with that is I have very huge class sizes this year, near 40 in all of them.
Okay.
So
Wow, that's quite large.
I try my hardest, but then when I do certain things like that, I just find I'm really just running around all day. But I still like doing that because I really want to be able to trying to chat with a lot of the students, especially the ones I know who are going to need my help, because I see either they're struggling or they ask me for their help, or, ones that need more attention because they just need to be reminded to stay on task. So I like being able to run around and help them, but then again, it's a little exhausting.
Okay. Sure. So it sounds like a lot of cruising the room, formatively looking at students or groups of students to see if they're understanding or if they're struggling. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah.
Okay.
And once in a while, I'll try to ask some questions and say, okay, so what if this happened instead? And if they can answer these different questions that still are associated with the concept, right, then I know, okay, that they're getting it, they're thinking.
Okay.
But if they can't maybe answer those questions, then I know that they might still need more practice or still need more help.
Okay, got it. Oh, thanks. That's really helpful. So maybe thinking a little bit more broadly as you're looking at your units and your curriculum as a whole, in your school setting, how do you decide what to teach and what not to teach?
Well, as I said before, with the general physics, I have gotten most of my assignments and tests from the other physics teacher.
Right.
But back when I was planning for AP last year, I was able to look at the standards that you should have, like Minnesota standards, as well as what they would be tested on the AP test.
Okay.
And went off. But then this year with general physics, I've talked to the other physics teacher, and he kind of ran me through what he goes through, and I pretty much agree with him. There's some things on there that, to me, either I'm not sure if we're going to get to because we're going to have time, or how far in depth we're going to go in.
Okay.
But because I haven't really taught general physics before, this year I'm just going to try to figure out how it goes, and then maybe go from there. But I have looked at the standards before on like the whatever site that is. I forget what site that is.
I think I have them all in a big PDF document somewhere.
Yeah, all that stuff. And then with physics of sport, there are no standards, so I just do what I feel like, I guess.
Oh, okay.
But still keep it in the physics mindset. Starting off the same way, where I start first with motion, and then I'll work towards force and energy kind of thing. But it's only a semester-long class, so I'm not really going to get too far.
Okay. So it sounds like for the courses, like the general physics course, I think is what you called it, where you have standards, you have a curriculum from someone who's already shared that with you. There's maybe less freedom compared to the physics of sport course, where you really can teach just about anything. Is that right?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, nice. I mean, and related to that, let's say you're teaching a topic. How do you decide when it's time to move on to a new topic in your class?
Well, usually I just telling you like how my schedule goes with the topic is some sort of intro to it and practice lab, learn some more, practice lab, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Once in a while, maybe I'll do a lab before I intro it. So the lab's kind of like an inquiry lab, but then we talk about it later. But doing those things and then intermix with some quizzes as well after I feel like they've had enough practice. It's almost like, how do I explain that? Like I do look at what the students have been able to do so far. But because this class is designed in a way where the homeworks, if you do the homework, what's on the quiz was what the quizzes reflect the homework. That's what I want to say. Okay. So if they do the homework and then they pay attention when we go over the homework, they're going to do well in the quiz.
Okay.
And then the quizzes reflect the tests.
Okay.
So they're never going to be surprised with something.
Okay.
And as I move throughout the unit, maybe on this certain topic, I do those practices with the homework. I do some quizzes in there as well. After I feel like we've had enough practice, which is, I mean, it's definitely, the quiz isn't the next day ever. We usually practice with a couple different worksheets and maybe a lab before they would do a quiz. And then kind of when we've learned the last thing, we review, and then there's the test. I try, before doing the test, to make sure that they're ready by doing more informative assessments. I'm trying to do more Kahoot. Have you heard of Kahoot?
Oh, yeah. Actually, it was, some of my students in the tech course, 5007, introduced me to Kahoot. It was very cool.
Yeah, so I'm trying to do more Kahoot quizzes with my students, which most of them have fun with because it's more of a competition. And that way, on the Kahoot, I can see who answered what and kind of get a feel right then and there for, do they understand this or not?
Okay.
And I try to do that either in the middle somewhere of the unit or maybe a little bit towards the end. And then I know, okay, maybe I do need one more extra day for review with them. Or maybe, okay, they got it, I don't need that extra day.
Okay.
But really, just because of how this course is set up, it's almost like already written out, because this teacher has had so much experience in the past with already building this course for me pretty much.
Okay.
He's made enough worksheets that are practice, enough quizzes that are practice for the test. Does that make sense?
Okay. I think so. Yeah, I'm getting a clearer idea now.
Not that I would only follow this particular path and not do something in between, but that's usually what I follow. And then as I feel like, oh, actually, I feel like they would need more practice here, let's do this instead. Or as I feel like, you know, this is a better lab to learn this material, let's do this lab instead. So I'm not only relying on his material. I do try to find some other stuff. But I feel his material is actually pretty good at teaching them what they need to know and giving them the practice. And they really shouldn't be surprised on the test, because everything on the homework and the quiz will be on the test. Like, it's not that much different, you know, different numbers here and there.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, that makes sense.
Nice. Yeah. It's starting to open it up for me. It's always interesting seeing, you know, what another teacher does and all the things that you kind of know, and you think, oh man, shoot, I got to explain that. How would I explain what I do? So that's really helpful. I guess even more generally, I'm curious, in your opinion, how do your students learn science best? If you had to sum that up, what would you say?
I think that there's a stigma that they learn best by, you know, doing the PowerPoint notes and then, you know, having it kind of more written out for them.
Okay.
I don't think they do well when I try to do like more of an inquiry lab where they have to be on their own and think on their own.
Okay.
And I know that's really what, you know, all classes are trying to tell you right now, and everything's trying to tell you is, you know, do more inquiry, try to make them think more on their own, try to make them think of these higher, and be able to answer these higher level questions instead of you know, spelling it out for them as they go. But the students believe that's how they learn better, is if you kind of spell it out for them. And so,
okay.
Because that's what I feel like. Because if I introduce something new where I'm like, okay, you know, students do this, and they're like, we got to get up and do work today. Like, they would rather sit in their desk and be handed the information sometimes.
Okay. So it sounds
sometimes they do like getting up and moving and doing labs, but sometimes they complain about doing labs when I feel like, guys, you get to not sit and take notes today. Why wouldn't you love that? So that's why I feel like they would rather sit and take notes than do more fun activities and stuff like that.
Okay. So it sounds like that's how your students think they learn science best when it's all handed to them. They can process it. They know, okay, here's what I need to do for the quiz. What about you? What do you think? In your opinion, leaving the students' opinions aside for a sec, how do you think students learn science best? You think they're right, wrong, somewhere else?
I really like the kind of discrepant event type of learning.
Okay.
Where I would show maybe a demo or something where they think one thing's going to happen, but then something completely different happens.
Okay.
Because then, instead of me telling them, this is fact, get rid of your misconception because I'm telling you to get rid of it, they're seeing it in real life. And then being able to connect what they see with words and maybe some math as well. And really helping to make sure that they connect a visual aspect with the maybe written aspect.
Okay.
I feel like that would be best because for me, I feel like that's what worked well with me. And not to say that's going to work well with everybody,
okay.
But I feel like you can connect with what you see, with what you're learning. It's going to help better. And that's why I like to do labs. I haven't really done that many discrepant events just because of maybe the limit of materials that I just don't have, or I just don't know of enough fun demos like that.
Sure.
But that would be something I would consider, looking into more as I further my teaching.
Yeah, I can confess, I experienced a discrepant event. There was a physics professor here at Tech who did a demo, and he had us make a prediction, and I'm pretty proud of my physics degree, but he fooled me on this one. This was something that I was definitely not expecting, and it was powerful. It was really cool. I won't give it away for you in case you ever experience it yourself, but they even for adults, they're kind of amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, no, there's still, I don't know everything about physics, and there's definitely some discrepant events that I would probably be surprised at too.
Oh man.
Or they make you like second guess things sometimes with some discrepant events. Be like, wait, I thought I knew that, but then wait, is this what?
Absolutely. Oh, those are
and
powerful.
I think, that keeps you engaged then, because if you're totally blown away by this demo that you thought you knew but you didn't, you're going to be engaged to learn, well, then how does this work? And student engagement, I think, is key to, like I said, to learning.
Yeah.
But it really is, because if they're not engaged, and it's one of the hardest things, I think, to do and to keep those students engaged.
Well, I had another question that it seems in some ways you may be segueing into already. I was going to ask, how do you know when learning is occurring in your classroom? And that might be a ground that we've covered a little bit here and there, but how do you know when learning is occurring in your classroom?
When a student can there's a couple of different ways. I feel like either when they can answer a higher level thinking question, or they ask me questions to further up what we're learning. So if I just kind of talk a little bit about this, but then they ask me a question where, they're thinking already further ahead than I am or something, or than the class is, I think that's when I know that they're getting what I am saying now to be able to think further from that.
Okay.
So either to be able to ask those questions or to answer those questions. That's when I know that they're learning, but not all students like to answer questions or to ask questions. So that's where it gets a little tricky, and that's why I also use that's why I also try to walk around the room and say, okay, this kid's already done it, has all the right answers, he's getting it, while this kid still struggling with number one. So I use that in formal assessment too.
Okay. So it sounds like you're looking for evidence of students extending their thinking maybe beyond just what you've shared with them.
Yeah.
And you're realizing that some people are really free with sharing that information and others maybe don't participate in that way. Okay. That's great. Oh, this is I enjoy hearing this. So thanks for sharing this stuff. I find this fascinating. I'm nerding out a little bit.
That's all
So
right.
forgive me. Let me ask you a couple questions. I won't keep you too much longer here. But let me ask you a couple questions about equitable science teaching or teaching equitably. So if you were to tell your peers what it means to teach science equitably, if one of them asked you like, hey, I heard you say this thing, what does it mean? What would you tell them that would look like? What practices would be included if I was going to say I was teaching science equitably? What would that look like?
Um, to me, that seems like, what's the word I want? I can't think of the word I want, but
That's okay. I'm not an English major either.
the thing here is I don't want to teach. I guess I don't want to just teach, and sometimes I do this just because with how many students I have or my time. But I really don't want to just teach one thing one way and then move on. If you want to try to be equitable, you really want to make sure you're reaching each student in a way that works for them. And also, if a student needs more accommodations, you are doing those accommodations instead of just doing a one level teaching.
Okay.
So if I know this student really likes it when I don't know, show a clip on YouTube that very represents this because he learns visually with videos or something, right?
Okay.
I'm going to try to maybe include those once in a while. So he gets that as well as then the other kids can see it. But I'm trying to explain this. But pretty much not doing one level and trying to make sure that I'm doing things to reach all students, not just the majority of the students.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost sounds like you're kind of describing. I remember in one of Barb's classes we talked about this theory of Gardner's of multiple intelligences. That certain people respond well visually. Some it's with audio. Others it's a more kinesthetic picture kind of thing. Is that similar to what you're saying, or am I taking it in a whole other direction?
Kind of. I mean, there's some aspects of that I believe.
Okay.
But I don't believe that those students can only learn visually.
Okay, sure.
So I think that they can learn in any way, but maybe they favor one way.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
And there might be students that have some sort of disability where it's really hard to learn one way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then they definitely favor another way. So when things like that happen, like I said, I try to touch on different aspects of those teaching styles to deliver this in a different way. So that way I can help the ones that favor this way, and I can help the ones that maybe can't learn it the other way very well.
Okay. Got it.
So it's not that I truly believe that only some kids can learn visually. It's more of that's just what they kind of prefer. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that I help them at least in that way somehow.
Mm-hmm. You're varying your instructions so it's not always one mode or one style, it sounds like. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah, at least I try, or that's what it would look like.
Sure, okay. Well, you mentioned, say, including a video that connected with at least one student in your class. What are some other examples of practices you've used that you feel makes science learning in your classroom equitable?
So the other day when we were reviewing for the test, I realized that I could totally explain this one concept a different way using math instead of maybe...
Ooh, scary.
So I explained it to them on the board, and I said, okay, so we've learned it this way. Why don't we look at this instead like math? And I used math to explain the concept.
Okay.
And then I also tried to explain it using maybe visual, but visual in their head. Because I tried to relate acceleration to wind. So,
okay.
Like the concept of because you have to decide that right's positive and left's negative, right? So if you're going to the left, you have a negative velocity.
Right. Yes, I'm correct. Sure.
And the students got really confused when you go to the left and you have a negative velocity. They got that. Then if you go faster and faster to the left, you also have a negative acceleration.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Use that about the negative. They think, oh, well, if I have a bigger negative number, that's actually a smaller value. And they're getting confused about how a vector, you need a magnitude and a direction, and the negative is just the direction. And so I tried then to explain this with math using, okay, if this is my setup, I'm going this speed and then this speed in this direction. See, my math works out where you're going to get negative or something like that.
Okay.
Now I try to relate it to wind, saying if you're going left and you have wind going with you in the same direction, you're going to speed up. So think of acceleration. When the acceleration's in the same direction as the velocity, you go faster. The only thing is you're going to the left, so they're both negative. They're both in the same direction. So I tried to then explain it like wind. And then I've also tried to walk in front of the classroom as I talk about it, so I can show them how it would look when I walk like this. So I've tried all those different ways. Okay. And I'm like, hopefully one of them, went with you and you got it. If not, please come talk to me after school and we'll go further. So that's one example, as I try to use a couple different visual aspects and math and, even graphing to try to get them, help them realize about this acceleration velocity thing.
Right on. Okay. No, thanks for explaining that. That helps. I've just got one last question. Let me ask maybe about equitable science teaching in a little different way. If you can, think back to a lesson that you taught that was relevant to students' lives. So if you can remember a lesson like that, would you walk me through your process of how you incorporated those science topics and made them relevant to your students in your lesson? Like, what'd you do? What was your
well, one that
process?
comes to mind right away maybe is impulse.
Okay.
Because, you can really impulse so well with crashes. And
a lot of impulse in a crash. That's right.
Right. And also just momentum and conservation of momentum, that kind of stuff with crashes, because usually you have collisions and you talk about momentum. So I tried to really relate that impulse and momentum to their real life of, hey, real life guys, like, you can die if you get in a crash kind of thing.
Sure.
Like I usually do actually try to put real life lessons in the lesson once in a while. Okay. But we would do problems where I said, okay, this is what happens with maybe a car and you hit it. Let's find the force or whatever, and let's do this. And then after we find that out and I try to compare this number, I said, okay, this is the force for this when you crash in your car. Or maybe it was because a huge truck hit you, right? So then you're going to experience a different, force and momentum loss in the truck because the truck had a greater mass. So then I try to relate that then to them and say, if this happens to you in real life, let's think about inside the car. Oh, I also use that for inertia too, right? So when a car gets hit, the car stops and everything else still wants to keep moving. Then your body wants to keep moving and the airbag stops you. Right. But the organs want to keep moving.
Hopefully there's a seatbelt too, right?
Yeah, and your seatbelt, right? So that's why you have internal damage as well. But then because you want to keep moving, and then there's the impulse, the force of that impact, depending on how much time you have. So then you can talk about why airbags are so helpful, why helmets are helpful, why any cushioning is going to be helpful in some sort of collision. Right, to slow down or to increase the time so that force of the impact is smaller. So I think in that lesson, I really do try to push certain things like wear your seatbelt, don't text and drive, and wear helmets when you do football or whatever, things like that, to try to relate it to their life a little bit more and give that kind of life lesson.
Got it. Okay. That's great. Well, all right. I know this is just a baseline interview, but I feel like I've learned a lot about kind of what you like to do in your classes and how you work with your students. So thank you. It's by my time, we've been chatting for about 40 minutes here. So that's my goal, is to not go too much longer than a half hour when we do these things. So hopefully the next one will be a little shorter. I hope you don't mind chatting with me about it. So that's great. That gives me a lot of info. I'm going to be excited to working with you in the future. I believe, it's my hunch that I'll move this. We'll be doing these maybe once every 2 months or so. So it'll be semi-regular, but not all the time. If you ever have a question about kind of what we're doing here, or even things that are going on in Barb's class, if there's any way that I can help out, please let me know. I'd like to make myself available. I'm not here to just quiz you or anything like that. I was a student in this class of Barb's actually before I taught it myself. So I seem like I can't get away. It's like that Godfather quote, right? I tried to get out, pulled me back in. But it's a good time. Do you have any questions for me right now, Carly? Anything you want to learn more about, or you're wondering about? Can even be general teacherly stuff too. Been there.
Not at the moment. I probably will have more questions about, what I'm contributing to the program thing here and everything like that. But I'll have to think more about that later when I have some more time.
Absolutely. And you can always email me too if something comes up and you just want to ask a real quick question. That's just fine. Or if you're looking for a place to eat in downtown Lakeville, let me know. I can help with that. It's changed a little bit since I've been there, but I might know a couple places still.
All right.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much for being willing to meet with me, even at a late hour. I appreciate it. And we will see you online sometime soon, I hope.
All right.
Good luck with your teaching. I hope everything goes really well at Lakeville South. It sounds like you're the person they need for this job. So embrace that. Good. We'll be talking to you soon. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your week, Carly.
All right. Thanks. Bye, Josh.
See ya.